All right, folks. This is kind of a continuation on the last video. So if anything's a little out of order, if I didn't finish, so I had to make the last one pretty brief. Then I have a lot to cover to finish the subject. So I'm going to try to be rather rapid about how we go through all this. So I want to pick it up at 1 John 4:18, which says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love." That's 1 John 4:18. And it says at verse 20, "If I say I love God and hateth, if a man say I love God and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen?" So, as y'all know, Jacob and Esau were brothers. So, can we really hate Esau? If you are Jacob, I'm not saying I'm Jacob, but can Jacob hate Esau? Well, let's see what happened after Esau and Jacob had a little agreement about the birthright, and this didn't give Jacob what he needed from his father Isaac, which was the blessing. So that came later, and after Jacob stole the blessing from Esau by his father through the minds of technology or deception, because his mother was kind of racist, that he ended up stealing the birthright. And not that she's racist, sorry, excuse me, just that she didn't want these Hittites, and she didn't like this brother, and whatever that means. So after the promise was stolen by Esau, sorry if I seem a little tired. This is kind of boring for me because I've read all this stuff, but y'all keep on going off the beaten path. That I have to give it to you straight and hit you in the ear with the word. So after he stole the blessing, he said, "This is Esau." Talking to Isaac, and Isaac said unto him, "Thy brother came with subtlety and hath taken away thy blessing." That's what Isaac told him when he said, this is, oh, I'm sorry, the Esau said that first thing. He's talking to Isaac, but he said that first thing. And then he said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he had supplanted me these 2 times," which we talked about. "He had took away my birthright with the soup, lentil soup, red soup. Behold, now he had taken away my blessing." And he said, "Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me?" Well, I guess Isaac only had one. Once he got tricked, he's like, "Oops, I already said it." What can you do at that point, huh? So I wanted to roll it back to roll it up to John 1:47, and John chapter 1 verse 47. Give you a little bit of reading. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, and so Nathanael means servant of God. He said, coming toward him, and he said unto him, "Behold," this is what Jesus said, it's reading, "Behold, be an Israelite indeed, in whom there's no deceit." So he's saying, you're not Jacob, the deceiver. You're, because didn't Esau say you're aptly named Jacob? Like, that's appropriate because Jacob means deceiver. Because remember, it means heal, but Jacob grabbed the heel of Esau, and as Second Ezra says, that the end of the age of the natural man ends where Esau uh, heel was, and Jacob, the new era, the era of the law of Israel, come from um, his hand grabbing his heel. But heel also can mean supplant. So Michael Brown, aka S. Dr. Brown, say that no, Jacob's not really a deceiver, but it says, this is what Jesus said. He said, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." So all these other Jacobites aren't Israel, but they're, um, like as Paul said, a real Jew is one who is one inwardly. So to be Israel, you need to be not a liar like Jacob. Okay, so now I wanted to move on to Jeremiah 49. Jeremiah 49. It's verse 7. Concerning Edom, Jacob's brother, thus says the Lord of hosts, there is there no longer any wisdom in Teman, no longer any wisdom in Esau, like the country of Edom. Has good counsel been lost to the prudent? Has their wisdom decayed? So they were, like in the book of Job, being before this, before a lot of it, really, any of it, maybe, but except for Genesis, but of course Genesis was allegedly wrote by Moses. So um, uh, let's move it down to verse 11. Move it up rather. Leave your orphans behind. I will keep them alive, and let your widows trust in me. So the Lord's saying, keep a remnant. We're going to keep a remnant of those orphans alive in Edom, to be captured. And what we find actually happened was they went on, as the Herods come from Babylon with the Jews and the Pharisees, that they had gone on to captivity, and a remnant survived to come back, as the prophets had prophesied. Because God created man in his image, man out of red earth. Esau means red. So man, the natural man, like Nimrod, is getting replaced by this fairer house man that stayed in the tents, was afraid of the moon. So let's see here. Let's go to verse 20. It says, "Therefore hear the plan of the Lord." So this, like I was saying, this is all part of prophecies. This is the plan from the jump, to join Edom to Judah. And it said, verse 20, this is Jeremiah 49 and 20. "Therefore hear the plan of the Lord, which he had planned against Edom, and his purposes which he had purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely they will drag them off, even the little ones of the flock. Surely he will make their pasture desolate because of them." So we see a remnant's going to be carried off to Babylon, and they're going to survive and be given life so that they can be restored by the Lord in the Holy Land, basically, for a bigger plan down the road where Jesus would bring them into the fold. Like just a very few select of them, maybe just like a few, maybe 7,000 or something, that didn't bow to Baal or something. So. he talks about this hissing, be like Sodom and Gomorrah, but this is what Jeremiah said. But that's also what he says about Judah, so that they wind up in the same fate, and they end up eventually becoming joined into one people, especially in Babylon and thereafter, which we'll get into. But you say, oh wait, Obadiah say, Obadiah say Esau's going to be destroyed. So how can they? Well, these prophecies like in Amos where they talk about Esau, this is actually mankind. This is how they translate in the New Testament. When like James or Paul or somebody would talk about Amos and they talk about Esau, they would talk about mankind. So mankind's not destroyed. As much as you want to believe that, although Israel is spiritual people, that they didn't have a fleshly body, that they weren't like man, as much as Hosea 12:4 wants to say, you know. So let's look into Obadiah, verse 1. Excuse me, chapter 1. Obadiah, chapter 1. Obadiah, chapter 1, verses 10 through 12. It said, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever." So as Jacob was being destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, um, that or maybe he's talking about some time earlier. Maybe he's talking about Sennacherib, or something, and he's talking about Israel, But for anyone, since it's verse 11, well, let me talk about verse 10. He said, "Thy brother, thy brother." That's very important because we read in 1 John 4 that he that hateth his brother is basically not very well off. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in that day. Now the other side was like the other side of, if it is Judah, like the other side of a little wadi or mountain line or something that divides the west from the east. You remember, as as Lot and Abraham, Lot said he'll take the east, and Abraham said he'll take the west, and the east was destroyed. But whatever happened to Sodom and Gomorrah actually happened to Judah, because it was spiritual Sodom, and that's why it was destroyed and became a haunt for the Liliths, and which is Hebrew for screech owls. And so it says, it said, "In that day when thou stoodest on the other side, and that day when strangers." So there's a difference here. There's brother, and then there's strangers. So Esau and Jacob are brothers. They can speak the same language. They know each other. They're both Hebrews. But the strangers, as we see in Deuteronomy 28, strangers, like, and foreigners, different people that you don't understand them. So in Isaiah 28, he says strangers will take on this foreign tongue that you don't understand, and they'll be doing precept on precept, screwing it up, that they'll be learning it from you, and foreigners entered into, and this all happened, and you can see it all the way through Jonah and Nebuchadnezzar and all that, but and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots on Jerusalem. And they cast lots on Jesus. Jesus is, Jerusalem. His body is the temple. The temple is the city. There's walls of the temple. There's walls of the city. You can't just say that walls are walls. These walls are walls and these walls aren't walls. But even that thou wast as one of them, but thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither should thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah. So it was Judah the whole time. Or maybe it was, I say neither, this is different, but anyway. Over the children of Judah in their day of destruction. So then maybe that is a difference. Neither should thou have spoken proudly in their day of distress. So, Obadiah is kind of saying this is before the later prophets. This is before Zechariah. This is before Haggai, of course. The what the Jews call the great assembly of men. This people that lived hundreds of years, like Ezra and Daniel and all them. Malachi 1. We're going to. This is before Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament. This is Malachi 1. Verses 3 and 4. And I hated Esau and laid his mountains and heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus says the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. They shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. Well, y'all Hebrew Israelites, I say, well, Edom is Rome. Well, Rome built a pretty tall structure that never got thrown down in Petra. Just saying. But it says he'll make his heritage a waste for the dragons in the wilderness, like lizards and stuff. Like what happened to Israel. It says he laid his heritage waste. He laid. Look at it. Verse 3. He laid. It already happened. So if we look at Jeremiah chapter 49, which we've been in Jeremiah 49 a lot, it says Hazor, wherever the heck Hazor is, but I'm guessing it's Edom, because it's in the chapter section about Edom. It says Hazor will become a haunt of jackals, a desolation forever. No one will live there, nor a son of man reside in it. Well, Malachi is saying that happened. So is Malachi not in the Bible or something? Now, I want you to think about this term jackals. This is dogs. Like coyotes are dogs. The Syrophoenician woman was called a dog. When you look at Isaiah 11, it say the sheep will be lying down with the dog. So even if you do believe that Esau is a Gentile and a dog, it said the sheep will be lying down like a dog. But apparently they're not dogs, the people of Esau, because it says they're going to live there, but it's not going to be no man living there. So, but we also see in Isaiah 11 that the sheep will lie down with the dogs. So this isn't the Messianic era. This beginning of the Second Temple isn't the Messianic era per se, but it's like where it starts, as it builds up for hundreds and hundreds of years through Jeremiah's prophecy and through the prophecy of Daniel in the 70 weeks. But this is like, the whole thing takes 400 years or more. So we see in Isaiah 11, the sheep will lie down with the dog, but there's going to be no people here, and the people were called sheep in Jeremiah 49 and verse 20. Do we got to read that again? It says, here's talking about the people of Edom called sheep. It said, therefore hear the plan of the Lord, which he had planned against Edom, and his purposes which he had proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely they will drag them off, even the little ones of the flock. He will surely make their pasture desolate because of them. So they're referred to like a flock of sheep. Now, if we go into 1 Kings chapter 1, 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 15. It says, for it came to pass that when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, has gone up to bury the slain after he had smitten every male in Edom. So Obadiah is basically saying that when this happens, that Edom is, all the males are destroyed, as Jeremiah said, that he's implying that this is the Messianic age. So was this the Messianic age as Zerubbabel? Was he like the Messiah as he was crowned, as Zechariah said? Or is this all hinting? Was everything in this book just hinting at Jesus? And I want to say it's the latter. So let's see if the Maccabees tried to imply that it was the Messianic era. Was it the Messianic era, this Second Temple period? Is that what the Maccabees was trying to imply? Well, let's look at First Maccabees, chapter 5 and verse 28. It reads, "Thereupon Judas suddenly changed direction." So Judas is Judas Maccabeus. He was the leader of the Maccabees at this time, after his father. Maybe third in line. Maybe he had one brother that was before him. I don't remember. Thereupon Judas suddenly changed direction with his army, marched across the desert to Basra. Remember Basra? That's Edom. We read about that in Jeremiah and so on. And captured the city. He slaughtered all the male population and took their possessions and set fire to the city. So he slaughtered every male in the city, like I said in 1 Kings 11:15. So that's what. So this is supposed to be. His name's Judas, but he's the priest. So you have Yehoshua, the high priest, and Zechariah working hand in hand as like two different witnesses with the Davidic line. Well, here you have a priest. It's already obvious that it's not Aaronic because Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah had already said that they're done with the Levites. They're only like the Aaronic Levites, but they won't. The previous administration that got fat, that they looking at this new administration who will be Zadokites. And this is where we get the term Sadducees from, because they were the remnant that hadn't become Essenes fleeing into the desert. When the Greeks had taken over. Now, in the same chapter, let's roll up to verse 63. This is First Maccabees, chapter 5, verse 63. And it read, "The valiant Judas." So here, what I was saying about Judas is his name is Judas. He believes in the Temple of Jerusalem. And he's a priest. So they're really struggling to show that this is a Messianic era. No, the valiant Judas and his brothers were greatly renowned. And remember, the Old Testament's a full book before the New Testament was written. They were already publishing it and disseminating it before even the New Testament had even begun to start being written. Long before, hundreds of years, like 200. And it says, verse 63, Judas and his brothers were greatly renowned in all Israel and among the Gentiles. Wow, they were kicking so much Gentile booty that the Gentiles actually had a healthy fear of them. Wherever their name, but also this shows that Judaism became the first world religion. How do you think Judaism got so popular, if not for this Maccabean era? You know, this is the second kingdom. The first kingdom isn't really recorded that much in history, really. Like the second kingdom is where the notoriety comes in, and this is true. You know what they're saying here, basically. This is a historical book. Maccabees is considered a historical book. So it's a and men gathered about them and praised them. Then say in verse 65. Then Judas and his brothers went out and attacked the sons of Esau in the country toward the south. He took Hebron and his villages and destroyed its strongholds and burned the towers around it. So in the last like 20 years or so, 40 years, if you want to say, maybe 50, the Jews have really been trying to get Hebron. They call it the city of the patriarchs. Well, Al-Khalil, is that here, was controlled by the Idumeans. So if you're trying to say Idumeans aren't people, then, or Idu people, then why is it Hebron controlled by the Idu Idumean people? Okay, where do I want to go now? Let's get Isaiah and let's see what Isaiah has to say about all this. Now Isaiah is before Jeremiah. All right, chapter 56, verse 3. Let not the foreigner who has joined himself to the Lord say, the Lord will surely separate me from his people, nor let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. So, it says in the Torah that on the third generation, the Edomite will be accepted. And as we see, Herod Agrippa is the third. And sorry, this is a little out of order. I'm supposed to do this when I was talking about Herod, but Herod is like the third generation, at least, of Idumeans that are part of the congregation. And Daniel, some say, was a eunuch. And then there's the eunuch in Acts 8 that is against the Torah. But this is like a new kingdom that Isaiah is talking about towards the end of Isaiah, such as Jesus, so it says, the foreigner, let not the foreigner say to him, he will surely separate. And we see in Ephesians 2, the middle wall of partition is broken down. So there's no longer a court of the Gentiles, that they were so dirty that they had to be kept out. And, all these Jews were worried about in Acts 21 that Paul was going to bring a Gentile into the holiest of holies that Pompey had already been in. So, and hadn't Antiochus IV been in there too? But if Herod's temple was a new temple and Herod had built this, if he wasn't a Jew, why would he be putting all this money into the temple in Jerusalem when he's from Caesarea or whatever? So let's see what Isaiah says in chapter 63. Verse 3. So it says, the vengeance on the nations is the title, not part of the original Bible, but John MacArthur put it on there, whatever. I have trodden the wine through alone, and from the people there was no man with me. I also trod them in my anger, and trampled them in my wrath, and their lifeblood is sprinkled in my garments, and stained on my raiment. Well, he'd say in verse 1 that he come up from Basra. So this is supposed to be the Messianic era. They come up from Basra, after the grapes have been trodden. So is this Nebuchadnezzar? Well, the thing is Nebuchadnezzar was actually just the sword of the Lord. So actually the Lord was the one who went down to Edom, and this had been spiritualized, the parts that they wanted to keep in the book of Revelation, where Jesus. But could this be that it's the second temple period, towards the beginning? I don't think so, because we see at the beginning of the second temple period, in Zechariah chapter 3, verse 4, it said, and the angel said to those who stand before him, remove thy filthy garments. And he said, behold, I will take away your iniquities, and I will clothe you in pure vestments. So the Satan had tried to accuse him of being dirty. So he had been declared clean. So this kind of means it wouldn't be Nebuchadnezzar, because Nebuchadnezzar's fate, it went up, and then it went down, then it went up, but then after he drank out of those goblets or whatever, it was just done for him. So where I want to go from this, I just want to talk about, I guess, Genesis 4. Genesis 4, it says, Eve is made whole by bearing a child. So when she had Cain, not when she had Abel, when she had Cain, she said, "The Lord have given me." And a lot of people want to say that the flood wiped out the Canaanites or whatever, but that was really the Nephilim. So, um, in Exodus, I'm sorry, in Leviticus 18, it says that what happened to the Canaanites will happen to the Israelites if they don't obey the covenant. They didn't obey the covenant, so that's why there's judgment on them, because they are earthly Jerusalem, they're not spiritual Jerusalem. And this happened on time, according to Daniel, more or less. I mean, Daniel kind of puts the time right between, the Maccabees and the time of Jesus, towards like the beginning of the Herods. That it was almost like the time of Jesus had been decided, his birth, even before he was born, or something like that. I don't really know how to reconcile the dates exactly. A lot of people want to move Nehemiah really far down. When Nehemiah talks about events that were happening during Ezra, and Ezra was in the captivity, and then you try to bring Daniel all the way to Cyrus, according to the Apocrypha. It becomes really quite convoluted. Now, I think I've dealt with everything I wanted to deal with from the Bible, so I'm glad that this went so quickly. That leaves me time to read from the Talmud. So I don't really know the Talmud very well. So I just wanted to show you this. I've read this one time or two times before, so something could jump out at me that surprised me. This right here, it's the Babylonian Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud isn't really used. Like, maybe it's just more for legitimacy or something. But if they all had the Talmud memorized, well, shouldn't they be the same? This is the Tractate Baba Batra, Folio 4A. Baba Batra, Baba Batra, have you any wool? Twinkle, twinkle. He placed on his head a garland of hedgehog bristles and put out his eyes. I think they're talking about what's that guy's name? Joachim or Ded? I can't remember. One day he came and sat before him and said, or those one-eyed people in Gilead, or Zebulun or whatever, or Naphtali or something. Pointed to, never mind. It is interesting that they did find something taken out of the Bible. Was it from First Kings that Namasha and whatever put out the eyes of the right eye of all the people and east of the Jordan or whatever, the right eye. Why they took that out is really the big question. So one day he came and sat before him and said, "See, sir, what this wicked slave Herod does." And then Herod was added, because if you read down, it says Herod, so they just clarify there, apparently. What do you want me to do to him? Replied Baba Buta. He said, I want you to curse him. I want you to curse him. He replied with the verse, even in thy kingdoms thou shouldest not curse a king. Said Herod to him, but this is no king. He replied, even though he be only a rich man, it is written, in thy bedchamber do not curse the rich. And be he no more than a prince, it is written, a prince among thy people thou shalt not curse. SpaghettiOs. a prince from among thy people, a prince from among thy people, Herod. Um, uh-oh. This applies only to one who acts as one of thy people. So, Baba Black Sheep or whatever is saying, yeah, it says you only have to obey if he's acting right. If he's not acting right, you don't have to obey. He said, I am afraid of him. But said Herod, there is no one who can go and tell him, since we are quite alone. He replied, for a bird of heaven shall carry thy voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter. Herod then said, I am Herod. Had I known that the rabbis were so circumspect, I would not have killed them. That's a weird thing to say. If I knew you guys weren't so bad, I wouldn't have killed so many of you. Now tell me, what amends can I make? He replied, as you have extinguished the light of the world, for that's what the rabbis call it. So by killing the rabbis, he's extinguished the light from the world. Well, Jesus is the light. Jesus is the light. It's kind of blasphemy to call somebody else the light, isn't it? So, for the commandment is a light, and the Torah is a lamp. Oh, so they just show the light. That's not as bad. They're just telling about God and God's light. That doesn't sound bad. Go now and attend to the light of the world, which is the temple of which the temple is the light. God doesn't dwell in no temple. His presence wasn't even there when they destroyed the temple. He was long gone, and he definitely go with you into exile, like you say he did. Some report that Baba B. Bhutta answered him thus: as you have blinded the eye of the world, for the rabbis are called the eye of the world, the one-eyed wizards of the world. I don't know. As it is written, if it can be done unwittingly by the eyes of the congregation, if it be done unwittingly by the eyes of the congregation, whatever that means. Or if they didn't know it, then it doesn't count. Go now and attend to the eye of the world, which is the temple. So now the temple is the eye. So the rabbis are the light and the eye, and the temple is the light and the eye. So the rabbis are the temple. No, Jesus is the temple. I will profane my sanctuary. And of course, this is written after the Bible had already been written, so they'd already had lots of opportunities to copy and paste. Herod replied, I'm afraid of the government of Rome. Like that Zimzum there, I was talking about Zimzum, those Chabal Lubavitch, there, I was talking about the Zimzum. That's something that the incarnation had already worked out and ciphered, that they think they got the gematria on or whatever. Gematria is wizardry. Like a letter pertaining to a number means absolutely nothing, especially when you start adding two-digit numbers together. Whatever that would tell you, it doesn't tell you anything important. So Harry replied, I am afraid of the government of Rome. Why would he be afraid of the government of Rome? They put him there, huh? Isn't that what y'all say? This is so confusing. If you have not yet pulled it down, do not do so now. If you have pulled it down, do not rebuild it. If you have not pulled it down, do not rebuild it. If you have pulled it down, like, or as Larry Silverstein says, Paulette. Like they did with all the boats of refugees during World War II, and with the the temple in 70 AD, and they set it on fire. They blew up all those poor refugees in World War II. These Zionists, Zionist terrorists or whatever, that were terrorizing the British until they left. You are one of those bad servants who do first and ask permission afterward. I thought that you're supposed to do that. I guess not if you're a servant. But people don't like to be bothered with too many questions. I don't know. Though you strut with your sword, your genealogy is here. We know you are neither a Rekha nor the son of a Rekha, but Herod, the slave who has made himself a free man. Man, you're gonna make me look up Rekha? It means fool? I thought Rekha means fool. So they're saying Jews are fools and Herod made himself a fool? To stomp. Looks a lot like the word for evil, but with a cough in it. So they're saying the Jews stomp, like with the heel, like Jacob's heel, where he supplants everybody, and you've made yourself this. Well, we know that all the Edomites had been converted long before the day of Jesus, during the Hasmonean era, and it wasn't like they circumcised them, and then while they were trying to heal, they were weak, and a few of them went out and killed like 1,000 of them with the job of donkey bone or whatever that they like they had done to the Shechemites, even though the Shechemites, I thought they were Hittites that were kind enough to sell a burial place for Sarah, again proving that Hebron was not a Jewish place. Not that Abraham is a Jew or anything. So, it means royalty. As was written, I am this day Rak, and appointed king. So to be king means to stomp out other people with your heel. Or if so, they were saying, no, it wasn't Jew. It says, we know that you're not one who stomps, and then you're made a free man to do whatever you want. Then you became king, and they cried before him, Abrek. What the heck does Abrek mean? Good job translating. You don't even tell me what it says in English. It's a North Caucasian term. Oh, I knew they were Khazars. To kneel, to prostrate. So, by becoming a king, then you become a servant? Whatever that means. It used to be said, who has not seen the temple of Herod has not seen a beautiful building. Of what did he build? It, Rabbah said, of yellow, white, and marble. Oh, so it wasn't like Solomon's temple that was all red and scarlet and purple and all those colors of the merchants. It's some say blue. Jews love blue. Yellow, white marble. Alternate rows of the stones projected so as to leave a place for cement. He originally intended to cover with gold, like Solomon's temple. But the rabbis advised him not to, since it was more beautiful as it was. Wow, more beautiful than gold? Definitely not the third temple, because that's going to be... Woo! The third, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about on earth. I'm talking about in heaven for all you weirdos out there. How can okay? Looking like the waves of the sea. That's not marvelous. How came Baba be Buddha to do this? To give advice to Herod, seeing that Rab Judah has said the name of Rab, or it may be Joshua be Levi, that Daniel was punished only because he gave advice to Nebuchadnezzar, that as it is written, therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and atone thy sins by righteousness, and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if there may be lengthening of thy tranquility. And again, all this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar, and again at the end of 12 months, etc. If you like, you can say that this does not apply to a slave of an Israelite such as Herod was. Herod was an Israelite. It says, if you can say this, this does not apply to a slave of an Israelite such as Herod was, who is under obligation to keep the commandments. Herod was under obligation to keep the commandments. That means he was a Jew. I mean, it wasn't like a true Jew because, like as Paul said, the true Jews are the ones inwardly that, if he was killing the innocents, like had happened to the Egyptians, then he would be evil for killing innocent firstborns. Like Moloch had told them to. You know, they're going around the desert carrying the tabernacle of Moloch with their Star of David, aka the Star of Remphan, as Stephen had said these wicked people were doing. From whence do we learn that Daniel was punished? Shall I say in this verse that Esther called Hatak, who was Rab, that told the same as Daniel? This is sufficient if we accept the view of those who called Hatach because he was cut down Hatach from his greatness, but on the view of those who say that he was called Hatach because all matters were decided Hatach according to his counsel. What answer can we give that the thrown into the den of the lions, all according to the custom of the district? Would further implication is conveyed by the word all, that we include places where fences are made of palm branches and branches of bay trees. Therefore, if the walls fall, both the place and the stones belong to both. Surely it's self-evident. It is required to be stated in the view that where the wall had fallen entirely into the property of one of them, or where the stones have been cleared of one of the stones. There was part. You might think that in one point of onus probanda falls into the other as claimants. It's all business law. Business law, usury law, banking law. I don't know if there's anything good in here. I don't know. Not that the Crusaders are any better. I think they put a bunch of God's chosen into the temple to create usury during the Crusades. You know, it was the same English that created Zionism because they wanted to beat the Germans or whatever so bad. And you know, they've been conspiring against the Germans for a long time. Pope Gregory the Great, he wanted to make sure that Germany wouldn't be influenced by Celtic Christianity while Germany was becoming a world power 1,000 years ago or something. I don't know. It's been a while since I looked into all that. All right. That's all I got to say right now. All right, peace.